I do want to start with what was played in the montage to begin with. The fact that the Bulls and you agreed to a long-term commitment, because we laughed about it here on the show. Every time, every game, I was like, Josh Giddey just made more money. Josh Giddey just made more money. The Lakers game, obviously, we said the same thing. Josh Giddey made more money. You and the Bulls agreed to this extension, 4 years. What did you think about just the commitment that both you made to the Bulls and the Bulls made to you to start this season on that note?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is where I wanted to be long term, and to be able to lock in for another 4 years is very exciting. I'm very happy with it, and it's exactly what I wanted. So I'm glad we got it done. Obviously, it took a bit of time in the end, and that's part of any business where a negotiation takes place. But yeah, as I said, this was always where I wanted to be. I never had any interest in leaving or going anywhere else. It just, came down to the business part of it, which is, years and dollars in the end. So we got that figured out, and as I said, locked away for another 4 years. So super happy, excited, and ready for the season to start tomorrow.
In that process, was there ever a point where you had doubt whether or not you get this type of deal done? And did you ever consider the qualifying offer at any point?
Look, I mean, you always assess all your options when you're in restricted free agency, and it was obviously a unique one with, not a lot of teams having cap room and all that sort of stuff. So, it was my first of it. It was my first time going through that. But, I had good guidance, I had good people around me. I tried to keep the circle small so I wasn't hearing too many voices. But, in the end, I let my agent negotiate the deal, and I trusted him, and they got, as I said, they got it done in the end. I would have loved to be back in Chicago. I would have loved for it to be done on day one. I think, like any player would, you don't really want the contract looming and hanging over you for a while. But as I said, it's a business and negotiation, so it's kind of how it goes. But glad it got done, and as I said, 4 more years, and I'm super excited, and it's exactly where I wanted to be.
Love that this is where you wanted to be. Trust me, that resonates with the people of Chicago. They love hearing that. They love it when athletes want to be here. I got a couple questions for you here, Josh. First of all, Do you know Bears punter Tory Taylor, a fellow Australian?
I've spoke to him before. I know who he is, obviously, but I've never actually caught up with him or met him. But yeah, very aware of who he is.
Okay. We'll try to make that match happen at some point in time. Maybe we'll get Tory Taylor to the sidelines at a Bulls game, or maybe even vice versa. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is relative to this time last year when you come to the Bulls and it's for a very popular player and Alex Caruso. It feels like maybe your career, as young as you are, is at something of a crossroads. How different does it feel at this moment relative to last year with the Bulls and getting used to being here and everything that goes with change?
Yeah, it's a lot different. And I mean, every time, you get traded, you come into a new situation. It's kind of like being drafted for the first time. And when I got to Oklahoma, I was brand new. I didn't know anybody in the city. I hadn't been in that environment before. And it's very similar to the trade. And when I first got to Chicago, I was, the new kid on the block. I didn't know anybody here. And I built a relationship very quickly. And it felt like home from very early on. But, a year later, it's a completely different feeling coming into the start of the season. I'm a lot more comfortable here, obviously, in terms of, on court, off court, my relationships that I've built with all the people here, from, coaches to the staff, with the players. So, yeah, a lot more comfortable. The feeling's a lot different from what it was a year ago. So, as I said before, I think we're all ready for the season to start, and I'm glad it's right around the corner.
We're talking to Bulls guard Josh Giddey right here on Rahimi, Harris, and Grote on 670 The Score. Of course, the buzzer beater was an incredible moment. I got to see it in person with Adam Amin, who was just in our studio, the Bulls announcer. But I also loved what happened in that game before that. Your steal to set up Kobe White to be able to make the shot before the Lakers responded, and then you took the other one. How much of that do you want to be a part of your game moving forward? Because I feel like you got on a really good clip there when it came to stealing, having an eye for that turnover. How would you describe that part of your game?
Yeah, I think that's obviously a part of my game that needs to continue to grow. And, I've spoke about it a lot with Billy and our other coaches, just finding ways to be impactful on that side of the ball. And I think in a situation like that, it's about using your IQ more than it is your defensive ability. And I kind of knew that he had to get the ball in quick, and I was able to make the read and get the steal. But, I think defense is not all about steals. There's a lot of components that go into being a good defender, and you can do it individually, you can do it, inside a team system. So we kind of have that more team-orientated defense opposed to those, individual lockdown defenders, which I think could be very, very valuable. And tougher guys to play against. So I think not just me, but a lot of guys on this group are trying to make strides in that area. And I think this preseason has been really, really encouraging. And I think coming into this season, our defensive identity needs to be established from the start, and I really think it will be.
Okay, so I'm curious, Josh, because you averaged 21.2 points, 10.7 rebounds, 9.3 assists after the All-Star break last year. I mean, that's a near triple-double. And now with Kobe being sidelined indefinitely as he recovers from the hamstring and no Zach Collins to speak of, how do you feel like your stats are going to translate this year? Because I think you can average a triple-double given the pace of play that the Bulls go.
Yeah, I mean, stats are not something I've ever really come into a season or a game thinking about. I think they happen, naturally. And, with the way I play, I love to rebound. I love to pass the ball. So they're kind of naturally occurring things. And, obviously with Kobe, I think me and Kobe are both better with each other on the floor. So having him not out there, I think not just hurts the way I play, but it's a big loss because he's a massive part to what we do here. And obviously you never want to see a player get injured. And Big Zach with the wrist, obviously that hurts us as well with his presence around the rim and his physicality. So anytime a player gets hurt, you never want to see that. But it's kind of next man up mentality. And I think that's something we've and Billy's harped on, all preseason with guys being out with different injuries. So we're ready. I think we've got a deep roster, and that's one of the luxuries of having a roster like this is when one guy goes down, the next man is ready to step up. So we've got trust and confidence in everybody in this locker room, and come tomorrow night, there'll be opportunities for different guys, and guys have to be ready to step up and embrace the moment.
Can't wait to see what it looks like. I was at the Milwaukee preseason game this year, Josh. I'm not even sure if you were playing in that game, but one thing I noticed was Jaylen Smith sitting on the bench, and there was a group of fans that were trying desperately to get his attention, and they were chanting his name. And finally, Jaylen Smith, and I think he wasn't ignoring them, but he just stands up and he waves to them. And I look at Jaylen Smith, and I'm like, that's a great guy right there, acknowledging a bunch of children chanting his name. What is it about Jaylen Smith? Do you like playing with him? Am I right about him that he seems like a great dude?
Yeah, no, that kind of sums him up. That's the kind of guy that he is. Very bubbly, fun guy to be around. And, I think the thing about him is that, his minutes have fluctuated and he's had to deal with that, which can be tough for any player. But his attitude and his effort, every time he comes into practice or a game, never wavers. And that's one thing you really respect about a guy in his position. So, unbelievable teammate. I think, I speak for all the guys when I say how much we enjoy being around him and playing with him.
We're talking to Josh Giddey, Bulls guard, right here on Rahimi, Harris, and Grote on 670 The Score. And Josh, the NBA put out a press release today that a record 135 international players from 43 countries are now playing in the league. Of course, I thought of you when it came to the representation from Australia. A record-tying 13 players now from Australia are all here, including a teammate of yours in Lachlan Olbrich. So how do you consider not just having a fellow countryman on the team, but also just Australia's presence in the league growing?
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, when you're a kid growing up in Australia playing basketball, you look up to all the other Australians that are doing that in the NBA. And I was no different. I used to grow up watching, Dellavedova and Joe Ingles and those type of guys. And, that's what I wanted to be like when I was younger. And now I think you're seeing the growth in Australian basketball with kids being drafted, and whether it's coming through the National League over there or through the college system or whatever it is, Australia's really becoming a pipeline for NBA talent. And, I'm super, super excited to see the growth that it continues to have. And, it's a good problem when you've got your national team having NBA players possibly missing out on making the team. And we've never had that as a country. So to be in that position now, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, because you want all your NBA guys playing, but it's a battle to make those type of decisions. So, Australian basketball is growing at a pretty good rate, and seeing 13 guys in the league now is super exciting, and I hope the future holds for many more kids to enter the NBA.
I'm just so curious how you see the league this year, the Eastern Conference specifically. There's been so many injuries, and now it seems a little bit more wide open. Now you're dealing with your own set of injuries with Kobe White and Zach, as we just mentioned, but how high can this team go this season as far as a regular season record and a standing in the East?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, the East is pretty wide open with teams dealing with different things, and you don't want to really put a cap on a team going into a season because I think, and as I said earlier, we've got a lot of confidence in the guys that we have in this locker room, and we think, I think the world of this group, and I think we can do special things, and I don't want to make a prediction or say we can be this team or. Then you got those expectations, you don't live up to it. But I really do believe in this group, and I think everyone wants to win championships and everyone wants to be playoff teams, and we're no different. But it's about taking the right steps and not skipping steps to get to that point. So long season ahead, 82 games, and if we do all the right things and play the way we need to play, I think when we look back after 82 games, we're going to be pretty happy with where we end up.
And Josh, one of the reasons we were inspired to request to have you on and wanted to make it happen was because one of your biggest fans in Chicago is in our studio, our producer, Robbie Triano. So I cede the floor now to Robbie to ask you a question.
Josh, what's up, King? Welcome to the show. So not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I don't think there's anyone here in the city of Chicago that kind of praises you more than me, damn near glazes. So here's the question. As a long hair hooper like you, how the hell do you keep your hair like that during a game? Because you're playing a lot of minutes, and I understand you probably use some product. How much are you using, and what does your hair budget look like? Because it seems immense.
I don't know what the budget is because my sister actually buys the product for me, but I do. Yeah, every time I get out of the shower, I dry my hair, I put product in it. So during a game, when I start to sweat as the game gets further and further into it, my hair gets, obviously more and more wet, and it's hard to keep out of my eyes. But that's kind of when I know I need to cut it, when it starts bothering me to that point. But, I put product in it. But yeah, no, when I start sweating, it does get in my eyes. So I'm actually getting a haircut tonight, funnily enough, you asked that.
Wait, you're getting a haircut? Whoa, breaking news here on the score.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
It's a trim. You won't be able to tell, but yeah, it'll keep it out of my eyes.
What do you think of Robbie's question, scale of 1 to 10? He just asked you 2 really good questions. What do you think?
10. Both great.
Yeah!
That's our guy, Bob Tree.
Hey,
That's us talking Getty.
Before we let you go, I do want to ask, because you really harped on the defensive nature out of the gate. Is there something you can point to say, hey, we know we're doing well because this is happening defensively? Is there something specific that you want fans and us, the media, to look for in tomorrow's game against the Detroit Pistons?
I think the physicality, that's one point we've really emphasized this preseason. I think physicality, communication, that doesn't require any skill. I think that's more an effort-driven thing, and we've got all the right guys to embrace those, that type of identity. So tomorrow night, it needs to be about us, and for the whole season, setting the tone on that side of the ball. So being physical, that's something we need to start from the jump. But I think our preseason has really been hopped on that identity and being physical. So I think tomorrow night, we'll set the tone with that early, and it needs to be a flow-on effect for the rest of the season because that side of the ball is obviously very important to how we need to play and get out and run on offense.
Josh Giddey, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a lot of fun, and thanks to your sister for doing an excellent job with the product selection. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Good luck with the season that starts tomorrow night. That is Josh Giddey.